What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Cannabis Corner. I'm your host, Matt. Really exciting episode today. We have a superstar American athlete locked up in Russia over a cannabis-related crime. We have New York continuing to make moves to ensure that they have the most equitable cannabis industry in the country, and many other news topics. So let's jump right into it. This is Brittney Griner. She's one of the best WNBA players of all time, and she's been in a Russian jail for the past month. During the WNBA offseason, she has played for the past 7 years in this Russian league. She makes way more money playing in this Russian league than she does in the United States, and that's why many WNBA players do a very similar thing, and they go play in Europe during the offseason. So in the beginning of February, she's entering the country to prepare for the upcoming season, and at the airport, she's found with a vape cartridge in her backpack. She's arrested, detained, and it was just this week that the New York Times broke this headline saying, Brittney Griner has been detained for cannabis oil. So obviously this was before Russia invaded Ukraine. The situation has just continued to get worse. It seems like Russia would use her as a bargaining chip now to try to get something they want from the United States now that this is a mainstream headline. So I'll continue to monitor this for everyone. I'm hoping the best for Brittney Griner, and we'll see how this one plays out. Moving on to a more positive topic, we have the New York State Cannabis Control Board reviewing a rule that would require the first up to 200 adult use licenses to go to individuals with past cannabis convictions or their family members who were impacted by that conviction. So I'm recording this video on Thursday, which is a bit earlier in the week than I typically record, but this is being reviewed today by the Cannabis Control Board. If this rule gets approved, one requirement is that all applicants must have held at least a 10% ownership stake in a business that has turned a net profit the past 2 years. So they're requiring people be business savvy and operating businesses in the state. But this is a massive development in the New York cannabis market. They've said that they want 50% of their licenses to go to social equity applicants. And when you look at the current landscape of the medical market in New York, you think, okay, well, how's that going to happen? Like, something's going to have to change. Because right now it's all multi-state operators. It's the biggest cannabis companies in the country, aside from like 2 or 3 single state operators that are currently up and running in the state. So New York is continuing to walk the walk in terms of social equity in their cannabis market. If they keep this up, they're going to be the primary case study for any state who's looking to develop an equitable cannabis industry. They're just going to have to look to New York and mimic some of the things that they've done. Dropping in to quickly interrupt this episode and let you know that it's sponsored by YESTERDAY Hemp Apparel. I'm actually wearing their natural undyed jive tee right now with the printed design on the back. They make small batch hemp apparel here in the United States, local supply chain. If you're interested in purchasing some hemp apparel, it's wearyesterday.com. You can find the link in the description of this video. Use code CANNABISCORNER for 10% off your order. Now back to the news. While New York seems to be doing everything right in terms of setting up their cannabis industry, Virginia, not so much in my opinion. Just this week, a Republican House committee voted down a bill that would allow for anyone currently incarcerated on cannabis-related felonies to apply for automatic resentencing. There's over 500 people currently incarcerated in Virginia that this would be applied to, and almost 500 of them were incarcerated solely on cannabis distribution crimes that would most likely be sentenced a lot differently in the current landscape in Virginia. There are some people that are saying the Republicans voted this down so that it could be included in a wider ranging legalization bill that they want to get passed in the future. So they'd use this to leverage, say, we'll pass that bill if it gets included in this one. So just kind of like a game of politics at this point now in Virginia. But from what it looks like, it seems like Virginia is going to be one of these states where it's just dominated by multi-state operators. There's like 4 MSOs that are pretty much running 90% of the market in Virginia right now. So I'd really like to see Virginia put an emphasis on social equity, put an emphasis on Virginians getting these cannabis licenses. This is an opportunity to build generational wealth with the creation of this new industry. So it would make sense to enrich your own citizens in the process, but it doesn't seem like that's a focus for them. We'll see how this goes. Virginia's trying to get adult use sales up and running as quickly as possible, it seems. So I'll keep everyone posted on any developments that I see, specifically in regards to social equity in Virginia. For this next topic, we're talking about Oklahoma and how they're going to completely overhaul the regulatory structure of their medical cannabis market. So when Oklahoma started medical sales, I was still working at my cannabis packaging job, and it seemed like overnight as a company, we started to get a lot of big accounts out of Oklahoma. Much bigger accounts than we would typically see in a state that only has a medical market. That rapid growth in Oklahoma was most likely thanks to the limited regulatory structure that they have in place currently. So one of the things that I want to mention, just there's a 12-point plan that these politicians are talking about. And the biggest aspect of this, in my opinion, is full implementation of a seed-to-sale system. To my understanding, this is something that when a medical market starts up, this is included from the beginning. This is a very important piece of regulation to ensure that you're able to track all cannabis products from the beginning as a seed to the end when they're eventually sold to someone. And so it's kind of funny that when I read this, I was honestly laughing that they didn't have a seed-to-sale system in place from the beginning, because just doing this alone is really going to remove a lot of the problems that they have with the illicit market. There's a few other things that will definitely help this problem as well and just make Oklahoma have a more sustainable medical market. I guess this is a lesson to all states that are looking to set up medical cannabis markets, is that you should probably implement a seed-to-sale tracking system from the beginning. This next topic is one that I've discussed multiple times in the past, but just recently, House and Senate committees held joint hearings to hear from veteran service organizations to hear how the federal government can better service our veterans. One of the things that came up is that these groups are calling for access to medical cannabis. Again, to remind everyone, cannabis is a Schedule I substance. That means it has no medicinal benefit and it has a high rate of addiction. These veterans are saying the complete opposite. They're saying it does help them medicinally, in that the VA should open up access to providing this medicine to our veterans. The VA is a federal-run organization, so therefore they will not touch cannabis with it still being under Schedule I. We don't need some big overarching reform right now in cannabis. We just need it to be removed from Schedule I. If it's removed from Schedule I, all of a sudden the VA has way easier access to give this medicine to our veterans who are just bluntly asking for it. So for our veterans' sake, I'm really hoping that this is a catalyst to getting cannabis removed as a Schedule I substance. Moving on, we have some politicians in Connecticut that are trying to get rid of this cannabis gifting problem that they seem to be having. So this is a problem that pops up after a state passes adult use legalization. In the meantime, before those stores actually open for adult use sales, cannabis is legal in the state. And so with our free market capitalistic society, people take advantage of that. And they say, hey, we're going to sell you this shirt for $50. And then we're also going to gift you this eighth, because now cannabis is legal. And I'm not selling you this cannabis, I'm gifting it to you, which is okay. So Connecticut wants to put an end to that. I think I'm going to do a deeper dive on this topic because I have some interesting insight of how this all kind of worked in Massachusetts. And it's happening in New York. It's happening in New Jersey. Every state in the Northeast that has passed legalization bills is now kind of facing the same problem. Massachusetts, sometimes it wasn't even gifting. It was straight up like farmers markets where you could go and buy products from these unlicensed brands. The products were really good a lot of the times. They were branded well. It was honestly impressive. So I think I will do a video on this in the near future because states are trying to figure out how to combat it. And people aren't really happy about this, about what Connecticut's doing, because it's essentially going to eliminate the people who actually do just want to gift people cannabis. Like they grow it, they want to gift it. Hopefully it gets tweaked a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see how they handle it. We'll see what New York and New Jersey do. It's kind of an interesting development. This next topic is another one that I've discussed multiple times in the past, and I haven't in recent weeks, but pretty much every week when I'm doing research for these Cannabis Corner episodes, there's a news headline from somewhere in North America talking about an increase of poison control calls for accidental consumption from children. So this is an article out of Boston saying pediatric poisonings rise with growth of cannabis sales. So the Department of Public Health is going to put a few $1 million together to create an educational campaign to try to make people more aware of the dangers of children consuming cannabis products. A lot of the times it's edibles because this stuff tastes good. Like, we don't really have to worry about the same problem with alcohol. A child, a 5-year-old, is not going to go drink a whole liter of vodka. That's very unlikely. But a 5-year-old will definitely eat a whole bar of chocolate that's like 100 milligrams if they have access to it and they don't know what it is. They think it's chocolate. It tastes good. They're unsupervised. They're just going to eat the whole thing. And my sister is actually a pediatrician, and she worked in Denver for a few years. And she told me some pretty horrifying stories, honestly, of like small children in comas from consuming cannabis products. So we have no idea how this affects the development and what impacts this has on these children for the rest of their lives. So again, this is just a warning. If you're watching this, maybe you consume cannabis products. If you're going to consume edibles specifically, make sure you're doing it safely. Get a safe, maybe. Like, put them somewhere where your kid is not going to be able to get access to them. Put them somewhere where your animal is not going to be able to get access to it also, because there's stores there as well. This is an important thing. Like, country like Canada, when their adult use sales started, it was, I think, 1 or 2 years before they had edibles as products that are available to the market for this exact reason, and cannabis is having the same problem. So I don't think this is a packaging thing. I used to sell child-resistant packaging. I was in a meeting one time where a woman had her like 10-year-old kid in the meeting with us, and anything I had that was to show them child-resistant packaging, she just handed it to her kid, and her kid opened it very easily. So this isn't a packaging thing. This isn't a labeling thing as much, in my opinion, either. Obviously, our edibles should not look like cartoons or look like other prominent snack brands, which is very common in the illicit market, but in the regulated market, it's often not allowed. This is just a user responsibility thing. So if you're going to go buy edibles, make sure you're being responsible. Up next, we have news of new hemp seed products coming to market. So Tilray is Canada's largest cannabis company, and they own Manitoba Harvest, which is one of the world's largest hemp seed food brands. They make some good products. I've had some of them in the past, and they are currently at Natural Products Expo West in Anaheim, California, debuting their new line, Power of Hemp. So they're coming out with a handful of different products: hemp and matcha, hemp super greens, chia and flax, ground hemp seed, roasted hemp seeds with sea salt. So that all sounds pretty good. And so if you're into hemp seed, check those out. So I want to use this also as an opportunity to plug this US company, Victory Hemp. They're doing something similar to Manitoba Harvest, where they're offering very high quality hemp seed products. A lot of it's grown in the United States. They have organic options for all their different products as well. They focus a little bit more on wholesale than Manitoba Harvest. Like, if you go into a grocery store, you might see Manitoba Harvest. You're less likely to see Victory Hemp. But if you are in the business of creating a brand that incorporates some aspect of hemp seed, whether it's the oil, hemp hearts, hemp protein powder, Victory Hemp is definitely a company that should be on your radar. So they have a lot of different products here. If you go to their shop now, and it's bulk. Like, you want a 55-gallon drum of some cold pressed hemp seed oil, Victory Hemp is the place to go. So they have wholesale. They have big bulk quantities. They have smaller bags as well. So if you like hemp seed, definitely check out Victory Hemp. And I want to finish this episode off by saying that if you invest in cannabis companies, you cannot be trusted, says Joe Biden's administration. That wraps up Cannabis Corner episode 9. If you liked the video, if you got something out of it, if you have any questions, please give me all feedback in the comments. Really looking forward to engaging with the people who are consuming this content and catering the content around what you all want to see. So until next time, if you're not subscribed, please do that. It will help me in the channel, and I'll see you next week.